I'm continuing to work my way through classical tragedy, Greek and Roman, and I now come to Medea by Euripides. Now, just to restate my background briefly, I'm someone who's been interested in Greek mythology on and off ever since I was a teenager, and I've read the basic story behind this a few times before, including in a couple books I've reviewed on this channel. For example, The Golden Fleece by Robert Graves, and also Bullfinch's Mythology, which I have laying somewhere around this apartment, but I can't find it at the moment. So I'm familiar with the story of Medea and Jason, but this is the first time I've actually read through the play. And this is the first time I've read anything by Euripides. So familiar with the basic story, but a newbie when it comes to Euripides' drama in this play in particular. So the basic story, if you're not familiar with it, and again, just to reiterate something I've said in previous videos, but when it comes to Greek drama, I don't believe you're supposed to be worried about spoilers. I think these were stories that the original audience would have been well familiar with anyways, just because they were well-established myths or well-established folk tales in the culture. But the basic story is that Jason goes on a quest to get the Golden Fleece, and when he gets to the land of the Golden Fleece, the king there refuses to give it to him, but his daughter, who has magical powers, Medea, betrays her father in order to give Jason the Golden Fleece, and then while they are escaping from his father and his fleet, Medea actually kills her brother and cuts him up into little pieces and scatters him on the sea, which delays her father's fleet because her father's fleet has to go and collect the pieces of the dead body in order to give it a proper burial. So she's right from that beginning, she's somebody who is very in love with Jason and very willing to do anything for him, but also a little bit dangerous and maybe an unstable personality. All of that is background to the beginning of the action in this play, where after Jason and Medea have been through several adventures together, Jason is now going to get rid of Medea in order to marry a new princess who is the daughter of Creon, the king of Corinth. And Jason is doing this because this is a step up. He's marrying a princess. This is a chance to get status as a member of the royal household and establish himself, and wealth and security and everything like that. But Medea is absolutely furious at being dumped by Jason, and so she plots a horrific revenge. Now, again, this is a pre-existing story, so the purpose of this drama is not to make a new story, but just to retell an old story in a new way, new at the time, I guess. So that's the background to this. And then, I guess because I said spoilers are not important when you're dealing with Greek drama, Medea gets her revenge horribly on everyone. She kills the princess through her magic, kills the father, and then kills her own children. The children that she had with Jason. So it's a very brutal play, and one that has a lot of soap opera-like emotions about betrayal and love and the fury of woman scorned, etc. An interesting little factoid I picked up on Wikipedia is that apparently Euripides changed the legend slightly. So before Euripides, the common version was that Medea killed the king of Corinth and his daughter, and then her own children were killed in revenge by the citizens of Corinth. So Medea and Jason's children were killed, but Medea didn't actually kill her own children, which is, of course, a very unnatural thing for a mother to do. Euripides, however, has changed this so that Medea is now killing her own children. And I didn't know that was Euripides' change. I thought that was just the original myth, because, again, in all the versions that I've read, that's just always been the established story. Now, I think Wikipedia, if I'm reading it correctly, does kind of say there's some guesswork going on in establishing what the original version of the story is, but it does look like, again, according to Wikipedia, that Euripides has changed this. Okay, so that's the overall. Now getting into the reading experience. The edition that I have here is translated by Michael Townsend, and it is incredibly readable. Normally when I'm reading the classics, I have problems with my concentration wavering, and especially during the long speeches, having to read them twice because I realized I haven't been paying attention, etc. But none of those problems this time around. With this version, I don't know if it's the translation or the play itself, but I was just riveted to it. I started it yesterday, and I finished it off this afternoon. I had a free hour at work. So I think, I don't know, I read it in a couple different sittings, but I think all told, it didn't take me, it took about an hour, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, which is not bad for knocking one of the classics of Western civilization off of your, what's the word I want to use? Knocking it off, notching it down, getting it off your reading list. So, you know, if you're looking for a classic that you can comfortably read in about an hour or less, this is one you can pick up. Now, because I was already familiar with the myth through other retellings, I knew where this was headed. I knew there were a lot of gruesome deaths that were coming at the end. So that suspense of knowing something's going to horrible is going to happen, but not knowing exactly what page it's going to happen on or how exactly it'll play out. Excuse me. That is hanging over the entire play as you read it, at least for me, and I suspect for many first-time readers. So that also kept me turning the pages. Just dreading the end, but at the same time being so curious that I had to keep turning the pages until you get to the terrible end, when Medea has actually killed her children. And there is a very poignant, maybe poignant is an understatement, poignant moment where Jason finds out that his children have been killed. He's pleading with Medea for the bodies, and Medea refuses to give them to him and then just flies off, leaving Jason a completely devastated man. So there's a essay at the back of this, as in this edition there's an essay at the end of each play, which I'll talk more about this, I guess, when I finally get around to reviewing this book as a whole, but the essays included in this book aren't always appropriate. This essay is an essay on Euripides generally. It's assuming that you've read a lot more of Euripides than just the one play, and it's building on other scholarship and dropping in Greek words, etc. It's not a beginner's level essay, which is what they should have in a book like this. But that complaint out of the way, I did learn a few useful things from it. I learned that Euripides apparently is famous for having a view of human nature which is much more pessimistic than Aeschylus or Sophocles, the other two Greek tragedians in this collection. And apparently Euripides, like Thucydides, was very influenced by the collapse of normal values and morals that happened during the Peloponnesian War, which was the period in which he was writing in. Peloponnesian War is something I've also talked about in this channel in my review of the Peloponnesian War by Donald Kagan. So that's a whole nother subject. But anyways, so what we see throughout this play, I guess, is like I just said, a very pessimistic view of human nature and the normal bonds of family just turned on their heads. Jason, in this play, does not come off like a good guy. I mean, nobody really comes off all that well. But Jason, of course, is one of the ancient Greek heroes. He's the hero of the quest for the Golden Fleece. And, you know, in a lot of the versions of this story that I read when I was younger, it never made sense to me how Jason can throw Medea overboard right at the end of the story. Because Jason has been our hero for the story of the Golden Fleece. I mean, he's the young hero who's going on the quest and does all these brave deeds. And then at the end, he just completely betrays Medea, and you're like, well, where did that come from? I thought he was supposed to be our hero. But the Jason that we get in this version is very callous towards Medea. And I guess it makes you wonder, was he ever a hero? Or was he just, because, I mean, a lot of very terrible people can do a lot of remarkable deeds. Like, you could be an adventurer and be a complete cad. And those two don't necessarily need to exclude the other. In this essay here, at the end, it says Jason is portrayed as a vulgar adventurer. So you can imagine as you read these lines that maybe the Jason who went on the quest for the Golden Fleece was just completely selfish and self-obsessed the whole time. And maybe that colored all his adventures all along. Medea seems to vacillate on whether or not to kill her children. At least that's my reading of it. In fact, it seemed at one point, near the end, that she had changed her mind and she was not going to kill them. But then at the end, of course, she does kill them. Medea feels completely betrayed by Jason. She sacrificed everything for him. And to just be thrown overboard at the last minute, she cannot, I mean, in her dialogues, you see that it's not just being lovesick, although it is being lovesick as well, but it's the humiliation of it. And so to submit to this humiliation and to have everybody know that she has just rolled over and let this happen to her, that's what's biting at her as much as anything else. She has to stand up for herself, she feels, to let people know, so that when people tell the story again, or when people are gossiping about it or retelling the story, it doesn't end with her just rolling over and letting bad things happen to her. It ends with her getting her revenge and standing up for herself. In a world in which women don't have a lot of rights and would normally just be cast aside. She talks about how women can't really divorce their husbands, but men can cast aside their wives whenever they feel like it. So this gender equality situation is unequal. And sure enough, if you go to Wikipedia, Wikipedia says that this play has become subject to feminist rereadings in the 20th century. It's a play that feminists have taken renewed interest in. And you can certainly imagine that by reading it. It's a play which also has all the fascination of a lurid soap opera. And again, I've mentioned that before. The grisly deaths at the end, the fact that you know that this is leading towards Medea killing her children, and then that really heartbreaking scene at the end where Jason is pleading just to be able to have the children's bodies so they can mourn them and bury them. And Medea is refusing them to Jason. Now, in Medea's defense, Jason, throughout this play, although he has some affection for his children, doesn't have a lot of affection for them. Early in the play, Jason is willing to let his children be banished along with Medea. At the end of the play, well, after Medea makes a plea for the children not to be exiled along with her, then Jason does seem to admit that he does have some feelings for her. But it's not until they're dead that he really starts lamenting them. Where is the line? Jason said, "Oh, children, how I loved you." And Medea says, "I loved them, you did not." Jason said, "I just want to kiss the boys." And Medea says, "Just found out you like them. A while ago you banished them." So it's unclear maybe how much Jason really loves them, or maybe it's like Medea said, maybe seeing them dead, he finally realizes how much he loves them. But I mean, I guess the whole point of Greek tragedy is it's supposed to tear you up watching it, right? But I mean, these lines where Jason just says, "I only want to touch them," but Medea doesn't let him touch his dead children. She flies away with them. I mean, there's some great back and forth between Jason and Medea in here. Before the climactic moments as well, where they're both giving their own versions of what they think is fair. So the dialogue in here is really great. Aegeus, the father of Theseus, shows up in here. I had to look him up on Wikipedia, actually. I forgot who he is. But he's the father of Theseus, who at this point in his story does not have any children and is trying to figure out how to have children. Medea is going to later go on to take refuge with him in Athens. So I guess because this play was performed in front of an Athenian audience, Euripides was Athenian, they have to set that plot point up. In some versions of the story of the Golden Fleece, Theseus is actually a member of the voyage. I think I may have mentioned that in my review of the Golden Fleece. But obviously in this version, he can't be because he hasn't been born yet. And I think this is probably the more common version. And yeah, indeed, in Robert Graves' version, Theseus is not a member of the expedition. I may have mentioned in my review, I don't remember what I talked about and what I didn't. But when I read this, I was initially confused and disappointed that Theseus wasn't a member of the expedition, because I knew in some versions he was. But I guess this is the more common story, that Theseus doesn't get born until after the Golden Fleece adventure is over. The chronology of Greek mythology can sometimes be confusing because of all the different versions out there. Anyways, I don't think I've got that much more to say on it. I mean, there's a whole lot more to say by somebody who's more knowledgeable about this and knows more about Euripides' tradition. And there's a whole essay here about how Euripides' heroes are different than Sophocles' heroes. But like I said, this is my first foray into it. So my takeaway is that it was incredibly readable and entertaining, heartbreaking, sickening in a way, but a fascinating little read. So if you want something that doesn't skip on the drama, you can't go wrong with this one. All right, how do I turn this camera off?